Your life experience, good or bad, is a gift when you share it with others. At Taxi Chronicles, we allow real riders with real stories to share their gift. So hopefully this episode will intrigue, enhance or inspire you. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Morning. Yes, we're back with another episode, another rider. Today we are honoured to have an entrepreneur in the house. He started a big business and I'm going to let him explain how he got started, what motivated in him, and the journey and the experience that he had. So nice to have you here today, Bob.
Well, it's good to meet you, and thanks for inviting me on your podcast. I'm extremely honoured. It's not the first one I've done, but it's the first one I've done in a car.
Okay, that's great. So first question I have to ask you, what kind of person were you when you were at school?
Oh, that's a great question. So I grew up in apartheid South Africa.
Okay.
And I went to a school where I resisted absolutely everything. So I was a nightmare at school. Those were the days when you'd get sent to the headmaster for a good caning on your bottom. And I was there so often that he would say to me, I'm just tired of this, so why don't you just make some noise as if I was hitting you, because it's just too boring. So that's how bad it got. I was very, very into sports, multiple sports, that was when I was at school. I was a nightmare, frankly.
Okay. So when did you come to England?
So what happened was I wanted to leave South Africa as soon as I could. I finished high school and I left 3 weeks later.
Okay.
I came to England and I had to do A-levels here because we don't have A-levels over there. And I did A-levels I got here at the end of 77. And I started A-levels in January 78. So I missed the first term.
Okay, that's interesting. I went to school with a guy called Peter. My close friend's dad was called Peter Hain. Don't know if you know him.
Oh, of course. Yeah, he was the leading anti-apartheid campaigner at the time.
Yeah, we were very close. I used to go on holiday with them.
Oh,
I was adopted.
Yeah, but you were very young during apartheid, because apartheid ended at an election in 94.
Oh, was it 94?
Nelson Mandela was released February the 11th, 1990, and I named my first son. Middle name is Nelson.
Oh, okay, that's good. So when did you realise, when did you realise the industry that you're in, so I believe is photography.
Yeah.
When did you realise that was your calling?
It wasn't.
Okay.
So, now what happened was, I was going to be a barrister, and I did all of the barrister work and all the courses, and I decided I didn't want to be a barrister because to me it was just an extension of, public school and, Oxbridge and all of that, and it also wasn't business-like enough. It wasn't commercial enough for me, so I didn't do that. But then I would have had to leave the UK because I was only allowed to be here as a student. So some bloke told me that I should go and work for a merchant bank. I didn't have a calculator. I didn't have any idea what banks did. I was a sort of history, English, arts kind of person. So I landed up working at a merchant bank in the city, and I got a work permit through that, and I stayed there. And then I just didn't like it. I just found it. I didn't like the atmosphere. I didn't find it creative enough. And then I got lucky.
What does a merchant bank do for those of us who are very layman's?
They call them investment banks now.
Okay.
What they essentially do is they do multiple transactions, including taking companies to the stock exchange, buying and selling companies. They're basically advising the companies, and sometimes they will invest, and that's part of their business, the investment banking business. And then most of them also trade. Most of them are also trading stocks, currencies, potatoes or whatever. So I did that for a while.
Okay, and you didn't. What was it that you didn't like about that?
In some ways, at that stage, again, it was like an extension of the public school system, and also you were advising, but you weren't doing. You didn't actually operate anything. There's no product at the end of the day. It was a pure service business, and it was too distant from actually what businesses do, which is make stuff or offer services. It was too distant from that, and I'm too entrepreneurial to put up with that for too long. So I decided I wanted to set up my own thing, and because of my South African background, I was pretty determined to set up, and this is long ago, to be involved in setting up a eco-friendly tourism business in Africa. And through that, I met somebody who was working at the bank, who became my business partner, who is called Mark Getty. And from there, I left the bank. We set up this business in Africa, and I left the bank and started getting images in March 95. I'm old.
So this is like safari photos and photos of...
No. The first thing that we did had nothing to do with photography. I was actually in the wilds of Africa building a hotel where you could see wildlife.
Okay.
And where we employed lots of the local community, and local community set up businesses which would provide the lodge with what they needed, like fruit, vegetables, transport services from the hotel. And that company is still going. It's now, I think it's the largest, what they can now call eco-tourism business in Africa. I think so, yeah.
So you're doing well then. Everything you touch is gold.
Well, actually, it took about 20 years for the company to make money. It was loss-making almost.
That's some real persistence then.
Yeah, but I didn't operate it because I didn't move down there, and I also didn't have a shareholding because I did it wearing my advisory investment banking hat.
Okay.
But the exciting thing about it is that Nelson Mandela supported it, because after he came out of jail, one of the first places he went to was one of these lodges where he, it's very private, so you could just,
you must feel very proud then.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm proud of how we kind of started an industry in photography, and how Getty Images has become like the name in photography, and now increasingly video.
Okay.
Yeah, but I lived in England. I now live in New York.
Okay. So you managed to set up everything while living in England and doing it in Africa?
Yeah, that business, which is now called And Beyond, was wholly in Africa. And I was fairly involved with it up until I moved to America, because I moved to the west coast of America. And it's very difficult with time zones and distance to get from the west coast of America to Africa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It takes a long time.
Yeah, I understand that. And normally you have to stop off in Germany. It's only the other day now they're doing straight flights, I heard, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, there are direct flights to Johannesburg, Cairo if you're going way up north, Nairobi, Lagos, Nigeria.
Yeah.
There are lots of direct flights, but from New York, not quite as many.
I hear you. So you've moved on to doing the Getty
yeah, that was my real career. I mean, that's what I spent 20 years running myself with a great team.
So tell us, what did you learn from your business as a entrepreneur that you wish you knew when you started?
Oh my God. Number one, it's all about the people and the culture.
I hear that.
Because talent is a very scarce commodity. And talented people can work wherever they want, and they will always be able to leave you if they're not happy there and make more money across the street. So you want to have a work environment which people enjoy, and a culture where they're respected and their contributions are recognized, and there's a human touch. You know, when you come out of a world which is basically, numbers, banking, it doesn't matter, because also most people in banks, they're kind of, in investment banks, they're self-starters. The culture doesn't really matter to them. They're kind of type A, very competitive people. So I didn't know that. I definitely didn't know that. I didn't realize that if you're doing your job well as a chief executive, you should spend 60% of your time on people, either motivating, recruiting, retaining, giving feedback, helping when they get into difficulties, because you're only as good as the people, and it doesn't matter what kind of company you are. Also, Getty Images is a very creative business. It's photography and film. So you're not dealing with accountants, you're dealing with artistic, creative types, and they have to be managed in a very different way from others. So yeah, I didn't know that. I also didn't know how hard it would be. And I also didn't know how difficult it is to get and keep customers. I mean, we've been damn good at it, but it's something which, even in your business, at the end of the day, you have an app that helps you. But if the customers have a bad experience, it hurts your rating and all the rest. So, you're in a customer service business too.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. You're very, very wise. I used to invest in Africa. So I went to live in Kenya.
You lived there?
Yeah, for 5 years.
In Nairobi or?
In Mombasa.
Mombasa on the coast.
Yeah. And what you're saying rings so true about investing in people. That's very wise word.
Well, the African environment is different, as you know.
Yeah, it's a very different culture.
I'm the chairman of the largest e-commerce business in Africa.
Okay.
And we operate in 11 countries, started in Nigeria. And the challenges in operating in 11 countries across Africa in an e-commerce business are like 10 times any challenges you'd have in a similar business in Western Europe or the US.
It's a lot more different cultures.
It's different cultures. One of the most interesting things is, you'll know this, the company's called Jumia, Jumia.
Oh, you're that company. Okay.
You've come across them when you were down in Africa?
They're equivalent to Amazon.
The Amazon of Africa, they call us. I say I wish.
Yeah, okay.
But like simple things which people don't really think about is that a lot of the places where we deliver are remote villages, and people don't have an address.
Yeah.
So, how do you get it to them? Well, you partner with a small business in the area who know the villages and know how to find, Mr. Who or Mrs. Whatever, because they know that, when you get to the village, they know which tree to turn at and which one not to. So that's just one challenge. Another challenge is it's a cash business. A lot of things are paid for in cash still.
What about M-Pesa? They have M-Pesa.
Yeah, M-Pesa is great, but it's not that deeply embedded. It's a very small percentage you have it. So we have something called Jumia Pay, which is a similar thing. But there's still a significant percentage of people who want to pay in cash. And that's hard to keep track of. It's very challenging. The technology is obviously challenging, but it has a mission. We have a mission, and when you have a mission in a business, it makes all the difference. When you're trying to do something which is mission driven. Our mission is to enable African makers, entrepreneurs, find a big market for their products through the platform, and we want to get consumers to have a wide choice of everything at a good price.
Have you been approached by Amazon and buying you out or anything like that?
I think we will be.
Because you're the name that is the most common name.
Yeah, we're pretty well known down in. Yeah, in particular, I would say, the big markets: Nigeria, Kenya, Morocco, Egypt, very well known.
Yeah, you're covering the whole spectrum from south to north to east to west.
Yeah, and to think about it in other terms, we have multiple languages and multiple religions in the company as well. Because we're in the Arab world, we're in the Christian world, we're
in the culture, the tribal thing where they have their tribal things.
Yeah.
So,
did you like being in Kenya?
Yeah, I loved it. It was my first time I was running businesses, so it was like a big shock. I just jumped in at the deep end with the sharks.
What business was it for tourists?
No, I had a gym. I decided not to go for the tourist aspect. My background is commercial construction. I was a site manager. So I was meant to build a block of flats, 35 units. But I ended up, some local talked me into owning a gym. So I was also ex-military. So I thought, right. I had some spinal issues and I thought, right, let me do the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Like his suggestion. And I had a gym, a car hire, a fleet of tuk-tuks and a clothing line to go to the gym. And we sold a South African brand of supplements. We had a contract for that, which was going well until the elections come and people stopped going to the gym because they were saving their money and buying food and things in case there was issues, political issues. So I didn't understand about the tribal aspect of that. But I do another podcast, which is this podcast here, Africa Investor Stories, where I interview people like yourself about their experience of investing in Africa in hope to educate people about what it's really like and not just believing what BBC and CNN say in that respect.
You know that 6 or 7 of the fastest economies, growing economies in the world are in Africa.
Yeah.
The population, in terms of a target population to provide products or services to, is absolutely massive.
Yeah.
The most misunderstood thing about Africa is how big it is.
Yeah, it's much bigger than anybody. They say, what is it, America? I saw a map where America, Europe, India, and I think...
And parts of China, you can all fit in there. Yeah.
So it's a massive landmass.
Lots of people. For me, for Africa, I think the most important thing, and I've been involved in a few Africa Zooms and sessions. The most important thing is you've got to be very patient.
Yes.
If you want to make a quick buck, you're not going to do it there because it takes so long. Also in my world, so all of my world is basically e-commerce and technology. So in my world, the penetration of e-commerce in Africa is tiny. So in other words, there's probably 4% of the population of Africa who buy stuff on the internet. That's all.
Because there's also the culture of trust.
Trust.
They only believe in what they can see and touch.
Yep. And it was, to be fair, being a bit older, I was at the start of the internet, and it was the same thing at the beginning in the UK and in the US.
Yeah, it's like internet banking. I used to hate that.
Yeah.
No, I had to go to the cash. Well,
yeah, and I'm not going to give my credit card to some machine.
Yeah.
And that's gone, and penetration is way, way higher, it's still a fraction of people actually going to a shop and buying a fraction. I think penetration's probably in the US, maybe 20 to 25%. And it's only significantly accelerated because people couldn't go to shops because of COVID.
Yeah.
So they were forced online.
Mm-hmm. I hear you saying. I have a friend who works in a bank, high street bank, and she said the amount of people who now have to rely on internet banking because of the whole COVID situation, where before they were adamant they had to come into the bank, and now they didn't have a choice, so they were pushed.
No, that's right. And,
in that respect,
we've got way too many bank branches. There'll always be some, but they're not going to be that many, because there are some people, older people, funnily enough, they like to go to the shops and to the bank because they get out. They're not and they're not on their own all the time at home.
Yeah. So, you've been a great guest.
Thank you.
The last couple of questions is, in relation to the Getty, you started that, you kind of moved on, from what I understand.
Yeah, I'm on the board.
Yeah, you're on the board. What are the biggest hurdles for that, for you, and the biggest learning experience that you can share to other people?
I would say that, a very big hurdle was we were professionalizing and applying technology to a business that never had it. It was almost like a cottage business. The second big challenge we had is that the creators of the imagery, before we got into the business, they took pictures of what they wanted, and we had to change that to, this is what the market wants, and this is how the market wants it shot. And once you do that, we'll be able to license it and give you your percentage. So that took a while to get the industry and the company customer centric. Yet at the same time as that, our number one focus has always been the image maker, photographer or videographer, as hero, because without that you don't have anything. So those were big challenges in the early days. People didn't understand what we were doing. Some people said, "Oh, so you're like an estate agent, you're a broker." And we said, no, we do a lot more than that. And then, of course, we had to take the business, which was very difficult, from slides, transparencies, to digital. We were the first people to sell a picture on the internet. And that was a big challenge, and we couldn't do it in the UK, which is why I moved the company's headquarters and myself to the US.
Why couldn't you do it in the UK?
Because the UK was so far behind in terms of internet commerce. The UK at that point, there was just it was even further behind in terms of would people do things online at all. This is long ago. You've got to remember that we didn't have broadband. It was dial-up internet, which was
6K, isn't it?
Yeah, and virtually impossible to send a photo through dial-up. You could do words just about. So those were challenges. But the people issues, I think, were the ones that were the most surprising and the ones that I spent the most time on. We also made acquisitions. And then you have to create one culture in the company rather than multiple cultures which you inherited. Yeah, but it was fun.
So you've been, like I said, you've been a great guest. My last question to you is, what's the impact you want to have on the world?
I think, not me personally, I won't have any impact, but I think.
You have in what you've created.
Well, sort of. I think with Getty Images, we've elevated the role and the power of imagery by being, as ubiquitous and big as we are. I gave a TED talk, where I demonstrated that pictures do change the world, change opinions, change governments, get governments to fall, and the power of an image is just more and more and more now, because there's imagery everywhere. We started off, we'd be excited if we sold one picture to the Times. Now we supply the Times with probably, 25,000 pictures a week.
Really?
Yeah, online. And they choose what they want, because now they don't just have a print paper, they have websites, they have Facebook, they have, apps and all of that.
It's easier for them to go to one source.
So that, I think, has been a good impact. I think if Jumia works out, will essentially change African selling and buying, and will also, what we're also trying to do is change the perception of Africa, that you can invest in Africa and it can be a good investment. So yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for that, and we wish you well. We hope you liked that Taxi Chronicles interview. Don't forget to share and subscribe to get the latest episode. Ever considered investing in the continent with the fastest growing economies and population on Earth? The same continent that holds 30% of the world's known natural resources. Listen to our sister podcast, Africa Investor Stories, where you hear real investors with real stories from around the world share their experience of investing in Africa. We post Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. British Standard Time.